Second.
Second, got a motion second. All in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous vote. Okay, we met in executive session to discuss economic development matter with Project 2373. It was a consensus that we would allow economic development to proceed, to go ahead and pursue that and negotiation. Personnel matters regarding county councils, information only, and receive legal advice regarding Great Falls Fire Department, information only. Anybody on council got any comments?
Yeah, I have several I'd like to make, Mr. Chairman. I was instructed this was the proper place to bring it up. There are three items. I had 2 phone calls today, and one of them concerns a solar project in Dublin Road with Mr. Herbie Lukes, and he has not been able to get put on the agenda. I would like to get Mr. Lukes put on the agenda to talk about a solar project on Dublin Road. I also had a call about another solar project today that the gentleman was told that we were not in the business of dealing with solar. I don't know how he would know that, because that did not come out of the meeting the last time we voted to turn those projects down. That's number one. Number two, I got a phone call today, and I went to the BP station, and we have an absolute mess at that intersection. It is not the county's problem. It is the state highway department problem. And but he has not been able to get any help from the highway department to go in there, because Mr. Hester used county funds, which I really agree with, to pave Commerce Drive. But now we have a flooding situation right there because the highway department has not cleaned the road out along the number 9 to the interstate, down that thing. And that's an issue. And then number 3 was, I would like next meeting or soon to have an update on the 1% projects. We need to kind of understand where we're at on that. There's a 7-year period of time, and we have some projects that are 5 years. Mr. Williams' fire station was the number 1 project on the list, and to date, it still hadn't started, if I understand it right. So I would like an update on where we are with 1% projects and how far along we are and how much out of the order they are as based on what was approved by the 1% committee. But I would like to have those projects put on the agenda for next month, next meeting, February the 5th.
So council can approve to add, well, let me start from the back and go to the front. So, Mr. Agee, after our meeting that we had last week regarding the capital project sales tax, I actually, as I had told you I would do in that meeting, instructed Mr. Hayes will be presenting, I believe he's presenting at the February 5th meeting, an update for council on the, let's call it 50 projects roughly, which ones are completed, where each of them are. Now, I don't know that I can tell you what order they went in. May not be. We might can by the date that the account was closed out, but we can give an update on where those projects are. So that's already in line. What was number 2?
The BP station is number 2.
Okay, so that's not anything I had to do
No, but
on that one.
somebody on this council got to have a connection to the highway department, get them to go out there and look.
I would say if we're not getting what we want from the highway department, we can make requests to them, but so can any citizen that
Well, he's
can
done
call in and do that. And then that, you can request to actually see what the status of that request is through David Gamble down there.
They have done that, nothing's been done, they haven't even responded back to them.
And I would say the next step is their legislative delegation, and that person you're speaking to, I know has a direct contact with at least both of the legislative members here in this area.
At the end of the day, people coming out of the gateway coming through that mess. That's my interest in why. I worried
Understood,
about it.
understood. So is that a suitable solution, is
Yeah, I mean,
to
I
let that
think
person, for you to let that person know to talk, if he's not getting help and he doesn't feel that he's got, now I can still follow up and see what requests have been put in, from our end. With regard to the first request, the appropriate thing to do, typically, if he wanted to speak, would come into citizen comments. That's what everyone else would do. That's what we've required any other business or any other of these projects to do. Council does have its, as its right to put anyone on the agenda that you so choose as well. But again, that might need a little direction from Mr. Kozlark as how that would work.
The county code in section 2-59 does indicate that the appearance by citizens is by the sign-up sheet. That is the mechanism that's provided for in the county code. But obviously, council has the ability to hear from citizens if the majority of council wants to effectively deviate from what its normal procedure would be. But again, there isn't anything else, at least that I'm aware of, on quick review, and I apologize, I didn't know that would be a topic, or I would have spent a little more time researching it in advance. But I'm not familiar with anything else in the county code that permits a particular citizen comment on the agenda beyond the sign-up sheet that is specifically required in section 2-59.
I got that same phone call today, and I think the route that I would suggest going is the 3-minute public comments on that. And I think the point that he's trying to get across, he can do it in 3 minutes. That'd be my personal preference on it.
Well,
Mr. Kozlark, would it be that if council, would it be a vote from council to add him to the agenda? How would that work for council?
I think that whatever the normal agenda setting process would be, but that is, at least in my experience and based on the code, that would be an unusual agenda item as opposed to an ordinance or a resolution or anything that is typically included in council agenda. So I do think it would be appropriate for a vote if council wanted to add a particular citizen to the agenda.
Aside from public comment.
Aside from the 2-59.
here's the issue to me. He has a project that's viable, from my understanding. He has, in fact, got a letter today. All of you should have gotten a letter today from Ecoplex, and it's addressed to every one of us about solar, and it really burns us up. But at any rate, I think what Mr. Luke says is a viable project that he's been working on a long time. There's been 2 public meetings at the Larish Community Center. Nobody objected. I went to one of them. Mr. Wilson actually came in for a short time. And I think from the fact that he has a group that wants to come and talk to us and present this, for him to understand that we're not in the solar business. I don't remember voting for that. I remember voting to turn 3 projects down, but I don't remember ever saying that we were not in the solar business. I think Mr. Lukes has a lot of respect in this community, and I think we owe him the at least the privilege of bringing his group of people in here and talking to us. And
Just as a follow-up, I met with Mr. Lutz on Friday of last week, and he wasn't communicated that we're not in the solar business. I told him that we welcome solar projects. We offer fee, and same thing we've told Ecoplexus and any other solar company, and that was the direction of council, that we offer fee and lieu, levelized payments, but we don't offer incentives, but we welcome the projects. We're not turning them down. We're not telling them we're not in the solar business. Now, the fact remains that it looks like solar projects without Well, it's based on a megawatt number. It's not based on really an SSRC, but let's just call it an SSRC if you want to back numbers into it. They don't work without a 65% SSRC from being viable for a company or anyone else. And so, again, I've communicated to Ecoplexis. Again, I believe I talked to council about Ecoplexis. And all the other ones, if council's direction's different than that, but I've never told anyone that we're not in the solar business. Just told them the straight facts of what I just repeated.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that, but telling Mr. Lutz he can't come talk to this council about a project that's gonna bring $12 million into Chester County over the life of the project.
40 years.
For 40 years, or $150,000 if it stays in land use. I think we have an obligation to hear it. That's just the way I look at it. I mean, it's no different than anybody else wanting to come and present a project to the county council. It's not citizens' comments. He's wanting to put money in the county's pocket. We ought to hear that.
Listen, it's not my decision,
Yeah.
Mr. Agee.
Oh, I understand.
I'm not going to comment.
Who all on the council has talked with him about this? I talked with him. He said he's talked to several more.
I haven't heard.
You know, and I got where he's coming from, and he brought every point out that you just brought out, you know, and which was, and he also said that, I told him that, we did not have anything, it was just, against solar farms, and he said he went through the planning commission and got approved.
They did.
And, as far as that, so, and I told him that we would look at it when that comes up. As far as that, but it has to be negotiated through our
Well-
economic development for us.
So that solar projects are a little different. There's no really negotiation for these guys, for Robert and them. It's whatever council says. And again, the direction 2-3 months ago was fee and lose, no incentives. If council changes that direction, they won't take it to planning. The problem is it won't go past planning and come before council without the incentive.
Well,
It's not viable for the company.
but that's, if you're gonna follow the rules, he should go to Robert Long.
No planning, sir.
Is that right?
That's,
They go to Robert, Robert tells them, okay, so how it works is they go to Robert, Robert tells them what the direction is that I gave Robert from council. They don't like what Robert says, they come to me. I tell them what the direction is from council, they don't like that, they come to council members, and then it's up to you guys to change that direction.
Well, there's a piece of the puzzle missing here somewhere along the line. If that's the case, and he went to Robert, then Robert ought to have him before, he should have a project. We voted down 3 projects, and what was said in private, and not in the public out here.
Did we vote them down, or did?
There was nothing voted
That's
down.
what I'm saying.
You
And I
voted
did-
3 projects down.
No, we didn't vote them down, not to my recollection, we just.
Like we just
No
took the
projects have
incentive.
been voted down, no projects have come before council.
There
We
was
just
a
took the
project.
incentive away. That's what it was. We said no incentives. You can do the fee low, but no incentive. Like, we're not gonna do this.
There hasn't a project that has come for reading for a SSRC, a solar
I
project.
understand that, but here again, I don't want to open my mouth for the sake of argument. Mr. Lutz deserves to stand right up there with his people. And if that project's viable, we need to do it. If it's not, we don't do it.
let me ask you a question. Why can't this project go through economic development and we discuss it, just like we discussed the project tonight, instead of having it discussed in the open public. If it's a project, just like any other project, why can't it go through economic development? Mr. Loops, go through economic development, and we approach the project that way instead of,
It has.
because but can't happen again?
He can go back there, but again, council has to change that direction. Again, and that wasn't, we're not saying anything that was done in private, because I spoke to every council member one-on-one too. And again, if council wants to offer incentives for solar, then we reopen the discussions. But council has to tell me that we're gonna reopen incentives for solar, and you're gonna say that out loud tonight in public, all right? And so every one of these solar projects is gonna be coming back at my door, and council's gonna be, they're gonna knock on his door first, and then you guys are gonna have to make a decision again individually. But my communication has been to these projects what the direction from council was. And that's, again, that was across the board for all solar projects. Listen, I'll do what you tell me to do. I just think you gotta be careful about
We
being.
had
I remember.
we had
I
a
remember
discussion
whole discussion.
about 3 projects.
Yeah, I remember the whole discussion. I guess what I'm getting at is,
Mr. Lutz's project was way ahead of these.
yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is, let's keep the system, instead of changing it. Let's go through our economic development department, and we approach it from that angle,
And let them bring it back.
and let
So-
them bring it back to us.
So-
That's where I'm getting at.
So the way that would work, and I guess I can say this out loud, typically, it would be a confidential project, but in this case, it wouldn't. But it would go back to him, then it would have to go to executive session for council to discuss, and and it would go back to a case-by-case basis, if that's what council is asking for.
So,
And then we'd be happy to go back to a case, but make my life easier.
so does that mean tonight we're gonna pull back the incentive and go back to the way it was from what we changed?
You don't have to do that.
Should we have to
Yeah,
pull it back
that's the
even
direction we're
tonight?
going.
No,
He
you,
hasn't even gone to Mr.
I mean,
Long
that's what I'm
yet.
saying.
no, because there was no resolution, there was no ordinance, there was nothing,
Yeah.
nothing that was done, it was a direction. So if council says, all right, we want to hear, we'll consider them on an individual basis, then I'll start, Robert's phone will ring, and we'll start doing that.
Let's not make that decision during council comments. That wouldn't.
And that's it, that's right, that's probably not the time right here to do that.
Yeah, it's not the time or place to do that, right? Not right here.
I mean, obviously, that is not noticed on the agenda as a specific action item, so I don't think it would be
That's what I'm
appropriate to
saying.
take an actual
This is just for
vote.
discussion, yeah, what
Yeah.
we're doing, only for discussion.
So for the next meeting, probably the proper thing to do would be for a council member wishing to have that discussion to request an agenda item to make that discussion at the next meeting or make a vote for the next meeting. I would suggest get with Mr. Kozlarek on how to word that, and then it can go,
Would that be an executive session?
no, that can be an open session item.
That could simply be an agenda item, yes, sir.
Yep. An example would be a motion to look at solar projects on a case-by-case basis as opposed to the direction that we had taken.
And then that way he can be heard.
That's public information right there, that you got that letter too.
I didn't get it.
That way, you're gonna get it. If you didn't get it today, it's certified mail.
Oh, I gotta go to the post office to pick it up.
Yeah.
I got that notice.
Yeah.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, I hear a motion to adjourn.
So move.